The wind howled across the frozen plains of Ulix 3, a quiet, icy moon far from any busy trade routes. The white landscape stretched forever, filled with sharp rocks and deep snow. The sky was dark and thick clouds spun like giant wheels above. The frozen hills. This was not a place for life, but something was alive out there. A small alien child, wrapped in thin fur layers, stumbled alone in the snow. Their name was Airy, their feet dragged and their hands shook. They had been following their parents through the northern pass when the storm had hit. One moment they were together, walking carefully between the ice walls. The next moment, a blinding wind had swept down the canyon, and Airy had fallen behind. "Mama!" The child cried out, but their voice was lost in the wind. The snow bit at their face. Their tears fell, but before they could drop to the ground, they froze mid-air, turning into tiny crystals. Airy wiped their face, their small fingers blue and stiff. The storm was getting worse. Their fur hood was full of snow, and their legs barely moved. Not far from there, a human research pod stood hidden behind a tall cliff. Inside it was Nathan, a field technician from Earth. He was alone, assigned to collect data on the magnetic fields of Ulix 3, for days. He had watched the skies and snow, waiting for something interesting to record. But today was different. Red lights blinked on his monitor. The wind outside had grown 5 times stronger in just an hour. Nathan frowned. "That's not natural," he muttered. He checked the outside camera and saw the snow falling sideways. The pressure readings were dropping fast. Just as he reached for the scanner to check the area, he heard a strange sound, a faint noise like a cry, cutting through the static. He paused. What was that? He adjusted the signal, boosting the audio. There it was again. A high-pitched, weak voice. It wasn't a snow beast or a wild storm current. It was someone. Nathan pulled on his cold suit and grabbed his emergency pack. "No way I'm ignoring that," he said firmly. He opened the pod door, and the wind almost knocked him back. Snow blasted his helmet, and his boots sank deep into the ice. He pressed forward, following the signal. Eri had collapsed near a frozen rock, their body curled up, eyes heavy. They whispered their mother's name again, but their voice was almost gone. Snow covered them like a blanket. They didn't even hear the human footsteps at first. Nathan found them lying there, barely visible in the white world. He rushed over, kneeling beside them. For a moment, he thought they were already gone, but then the child opened one eye. They stared at him, this tall, strange being in a thick suit, his helmet glowing faintly with heat. Airy didn't understand what he was. Their people had never seen a human in real life. They tried to pull away weakly, afraid. Hey. It's okay," Nathan said softly. He raised his hand slowly, showing he had no weapon. "I'm here to help." Airy whimpered, too cold to speak. Nathan unzipped a thermal blanket and wrapped it gently around the child. "Come on, kid. Stay with me." He pulled out a small heating patch and placed it inside the blanket. The child flinched, then slowly relaxed as warmth returned to their chest. He lifted them up carefully and cradled them in his arms. They were lighter than he expected. His arms held them close as he turned back toward the pod. Every step was hard. The snow was deeper, and the wind slammed into him like a wall. Nathan kept moving. His legs hurt, and his breath came out as thick steam. "Hang in there, little one," he said through his teeth. "You're not gonna freeze out here." Airy opened their eyes now and then, watching the human's face through the helmet glass. It was kind. It didn't look like the stories told in fear by elders. This human wasn't here to harm. He was warm, strong, and careful. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Nathan reached the side of the cliff where his pod was hidden. He opened the hatch and stepped inside. Warmth filled the small room. He placed Airy on the padded bench, quickly removing the snow from their fur and checking their hands. "Still alive," he said with relief. He gave them warm water and a soft food cube from his rations. Airy tasted it slowly, then ate more. They didn't speak, but they no longer looked afraid. Nathan smiled. "Guess we'll have to get you home, huh?" The child looked up and gave the smallest nod. Outside, the storm still raged. But inside that little pod, a human and a lost alien child sat quietly together. In a place where nothing should survive, kindness had made the first step. The storm outside grew louder as night fell on Ulix -3. Sharp winds slammed against the pod. But inside, it was warm and quiet. The little alien child, Ari, lay wrapped in thick thermal blankets. Their eyes were half open, watching the strange human who had saved them. Nathan checked the temperature gauge and frowned. -80 degrees, he whispered. This is one of the worst storms I've seen. He turned and looked at Ari, who was sitting quietly, holding a heat pad in their small hands. Their skin was a soft shade of light blue, and their eyes were wide and filled with wonder. They didn't speak, but their breathing was steadier now. Nathan smiled and sat across from them. You're doing better, he said gently. You're strong. Ari tilted their head. They didn't understand all the words, but they felt the kindness in the voice. They pointed to their chest and said softly, Ari. Nathan blinked. Ari? Is that your name? He pointed at them. Ari? The child nodded slowly. Nathan grinned. Well, Ari, I'm Nathan, he pointed at himself. Nah, then. Ari tried to say it. Natan. Close enough, he laughed. For a moment, the storm outside was forgotten. The child looked around the pod. Everything was strange metal walls, glowing screens, smooth lights that didn't flicker like fire. Ari touched the table and looked up at Nathan again. They whispered something in their own language, soft words filled with worry. Nathan didn't understand, but he saw their eyes change. Fear returned. They looked at the door, then back at him, and hugged their knees. It's okay, Nathan said softly. You're safe now. But Ari pointed outside and made a whimpering sound. Nathan realized what they meant. Your family. They're still out there, aren't they? Ari nodded. Nathan stood and walked to the scanner. He tapped the screen. The map showed a wide frozen valley, deep snow, and high cliffs. No signals came from that direction. Communication lines were down because of the storm. He looked back at Ari. I want to help. I really do. But that storm. It's too strong to go out again right now. Ari didn't answer. They just stared at the door, tears building again. Nathan walked over and gently placed a hand on their shoulder. We wait for the storm to pass, he said. Then we go. Ari looked up and gave a weak nod. The hours passed slowly. Nathan gave Ari more food and water. He wrapped an extra heat coil around them and told them simple stories in English, even if Ari didn't understand. They listened anyway, eyes wide, trying to follow each sound. Nathan showed them a small photo of Earth on his wrist screen. Green trees, blue skies, warm sunlight. Ari touched it gently, amazed. It's beautiful, Nathan said. Not as cold as here. Later, as the storm softened, Nathan checked the map again. The wind speed had dropped by half. Visibility was low, but better than before. He turned to Ari. It's still risky, but if we don't go now, your family might not make it. He packed emergency supplies, blankets, heating tools, food, lights, and a location beacon. He placed a locator tag on Ari's wrist. This helps me find you if we get separated. Ari watched him silently, but stood up with courage. They were ready. Nathan opened the pod door. Snow blew in, but it wasn't as wild as before. He pulled Ari close and stepped into the cold again. This time, the storm didn't feel as strong, not because it was weaker, but because they were stronger. Together, they walked side by side, with Nathan holding a guide light in one hand and keeping Ari close with the other. The child led him toward a narrow path between two ice ridges. Ari pointed to a frozen tree that looked twisted and broken. This way? Nathan asked. I nodded quickly. They moved carefully, stepping over frozen rocks and through thick snow. The path was rough, and once Nathan almost slipped. Ari held onto his leg, keeping balance. After an hour, they reached a cliff edge. Below it was a wide, frozen lake, and beyond that, a dark hole in the ice and old tunnel entrance. Nathan pulled out binoculars and zoomed in. He saw broken snow sleds and strange patterns in the ice, like someone had camped there. Ari's face lit up. They pointed again and said a word Nathan guessed it meant home, but something was wrong. No lights, no movement. No smoke or heat signs. Nathan's face turned serious. We need to hurry. He carried Eri down the slope carefully, boots crunching through ice. The wind whispered around them, but the tunnel entrance gave some cover. Inside, it was darker and colder. Nathan turned on his lamp. Frozen walls reflected the light. They found alien tools, a burned-out fire circle, and scattered items. It looked like a small group had camped here, but something had gone wrong. Eri called out softly. Their voice echoed. No answer. Nathan checked a small scanner. There was a faint life signal very weak and deep inside the tunnel. There's someone still in there, he said, tightening his gear. Eri looked at him, fear returning. Nathan gave them a brave smile. We're going in. And together, the human and the alien child stepped into the icy dark, hoping to find the ones who had not yet frozen. The tunnel was cold, dark, and silent. Nathan held a bright light in one hand while his other hand stayed close to Eri. The small alien child walked slowly, their steps unsure, but their face owed hope. They believed their family was somewhere inside. Icy walls surrounded them, smooth and blue like frozen glass. Tiny crystals floated in the air, dancing in the beam of Nathan's light. The tunnel went deep underground, curving like a snake. The cold was sharper here. Even with thick suits, Nathan could feel it. Stay close, he whispered to Eri. Eri nodded, gripping his coat with a small hand. Nathan checked his scanner again. The life signal was still there, weak but steady. He followed it carefully, marking their path with glow sticks in case they had to turn back fast. They reached a collapsed area, where part of the tunnel roof had fallen in. Sharp chunks of ice blocked the way. Nathan touched the pile and frowned. We'll have to go over, he said. He helped Eri climb onto the ice carefully, step by step. The child moved like someone used to this land, light on their feet even in the cold. Nathan followed, using his gloves to grip the edges. When they made it over the top, Nathan paused. He could hear something now, a sound too soft to be wind. It was a weak voice, calling out in the alien language. Eri heard it too. Their eyes went wide and they shouted back in their own tongue. That's them, Nathan said. Let's go. They moved faster now, passing strange markings on the wall, symbols drawn with glowing paint. Nathan guessed it was a message or a map, but he couldn't read it. Finally, they reached a small chamber where 5 aliens were huddled together under old thermal covers. Their faces looked pale and their bodies were barely moving. One of them, an older female with silver lines across her face, lifted her head slowly. She saw Nathan first and flinched. Eri ran forward and threw their arms around her. Mama! The child cried. The female held them tightly, tears falling onto Eri's fur. The others looked up, confused and weak. They saw Nathan and didn't know what to think. But Eri turned around and spoke quickly in their language. They pointed to the human and said his name. Nathan watched quietly. The older alien woman looked at him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. They're alive but freezing, he said. We need to get them warm fast. He opened his pack and pulled out heat gel packs and ration bars. He placed warm patches on their arms and chest. The aliens didn't resist. They were too cold and tired. Eri helped him, placing soft claws around their mother's hands. Nathan set up a small heat lamp in the middle of the chamber. It glowed gently, raising the temperature slowly. Steam started rising from their fur. The older male in the group coughed a little but began breathing easier. We need to move them, but not yet, Nathan said. They're too weak. He gave each of them water and food. Eri sat beside their family, not letting go of their mother. The storm outside might still be strong, but in that frozen tunnel, there was warmth again because someone cared enough to come looking. After an hour, the aliens had more color in their faces. The scanner showed their body heat rising. They were no longer in danger of freezing. Nathan looked at the tunnel walls. This place is unstable. We can't stay forever. He placed a beacon near the entrance of the chamber. This will send a signal as soon as the storm clears enough. Someone will find it, Eri's mother spoke to him, her voice weak but calm. Nathan didn't understand the words, but her eyes said enough. You're welcome, he said simply. Ari came to his side and held his hand. They pointed up the tunnel, back the way they came. You want to leave now? Ari shook their head. They pointed to the chamber and then back to Nathan. Safe, they said. He smiled. Yeah. We made it. He set up another heating coil and made a small space for himself near the chamber wall. He sat down, pulled off his gloves, and let his hands warm near the coil. Ari sat beside him, leaning gently against his side. For a long time no one spoke. There were no sounds except for quiet breathing and the soft hum of the heat lamp. Nathan looked at the scanner again. Outside, the storm was finally slowing. Within hours, rescue might arrive. But for now, deep underground in the frozen dark, one human and a group of snow-dwelling aliens rested together, and none of them were alone anymore. Hours passed in the quiet ice tunnel. The heat lamp gave a soft glow across the cold walls. Nathan stayed awake while the others slept. Ari curled beside their mother, finally resting in safety. The human sat near the entrance, holding his scanner and checking the storm levels. Outside, the wind had dropped to less than half. Visibility was still low, but it was better than before. Nathan leaned back against the tunnel wall, breathing slowly. His body was tired, but he knew they weren't finished yet. He looked over at the group. 5 aliens, including Ari, were now warm and stable. They had eaten and taken fluids. But their legs were still weak, and the elder male could barely sit up. They couldn't walk out not in this state. Nathan checked his supplies. Only 1 power cell left for the heat lamp. 2 ration packs. The emergency beacon was still blinking, but no response yet. Communications were blocked by the ice and the weather. They couldn't wait forever. Just then, Ari woke up and walked over to Nathan. They sat beside him and looked at the scanner. Storm, Ari said, pointing to the screen. Yes, Nathan nodded. It's going away. Ari made a soft sound that Nathan couldn't understand, but it sounded hopeful. We'll need a plan, Nathan said. Your family can't walk far. The tunnel is rough. We need to get 'em up top safely. Ari stood and pointed back toward the chamber. Sled, they said. Nathan blinked. Sled? Ari nodded again, then ran toward the entrance of a small side tunnel. Nathan followed quickly. Inside, behind a wall of frost, there were 2 snow sleds, old but still usable. They had thick runners and were tied with ropes. You're full of surprises, Nathan said with a smile. They pulled the sleds back into the main tunnel. Nathan cleaned off the ice and checked the parts. One was broken in the front, but the other looked strong. One should work, he said. If we tie them together, I can drag them one at a time. Ari helped as best as they could, using their small hands to brush ice and tie ropes. Soon, they were ready. Nathan walked over to the alien mother and spoke gently. We're going to move you now. We'll take it slow. Trust me. She looked unsure at first, but Ari held her hand and nodded. Slowly, they helped her into the sled. Her body was light but fragile. The others followed, with the elder male being last. Nathan tied them in securely. He gave each of them a warm patch and checked the heat level inside their blankets. All right, he said, gripping the rope. Let's get you out of here. The path back was long and cold. Even though the storm had calmed, the air outside, the tunnel was sharp and heavy. Snow still fell, and the wind howled softly. Nathan pulled the sled 1 step at a time. The weight was hard on his arms, but he didn't stop. Ari walked beside him, helping guide the way. They reached the steep slope leading to the ice lake. Nathan paused to breathe. His legs burned and sweat froze on his forehead. I looked up and pointed. Safe, Pod, they said. Nathan smiled. Yeah, almost there. With a deep breath, he pulled the sled up the slope. It was slow, painful work. Halfway up, he slipped and fell. The rope burned his hand as it slipped. Snow hit his face. Ari rushed to him. Not on. Nathan groaned, rolled over, and sat up. I'm okay, he said. Just tired. He stood and grabbed the rope again. This time, he leaned forward and pushed with all his strength. Ari helped from the side, pulling as hard as they could. Bit by bit, the sled moved. When they reached the top, Nathan dropped to his knees. The pod was still a few hundred meters away. He looked at the dark shape of the ridge in the distance. Not far now, he said. They crossed the last stretch of snow. Slowly. The storm wind pushed them, but the sky had lightened. Clouds broke apart, and a soft blue glow came through. The snow glittered when they reached the pod. Nathan opened the door and quickly brought the family inside. One by one, he placed them. On the padded floor near the heat coils. I helped unwrap the blankets and gave water to their mother. Nathan sat down, shaking with exhaustion. His hands were red and raw, and his arms ached. But he smiled. We did it. Ari looked at him, eyes full of thanks. They touched his hand gently and said, Safe. Nathan nodded, breathing slowly. Yeah, we're safe now. The pod's alert light blinked. The beacon had finally connected. Help was on the way. And in the middle of that frozen moon, inside a tiny pod, a human and an alien child sat side by side, no longer strangers. They had crossed the storm together and changed something far more than just their fate. Nathan sat beside the heat coil, breathing slowly. His body ached, but his heart felt calm. The small alien family was safe inside the pod. Ari sat near their mother, holding her hand tightly. The other aliens rested in quiet silence, their bodies wrapped in thick blankets, their faces no longer pale with cold. The beacon light blinked green on the control screen. The connection was clear now. Nathan pressed the button and sent a full distress report to command. This is Technician Nathan. Harris on Ulix 3, storm has passed, 5 survivors. Rescued, requesting medical and transport teams. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. It was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. Outside, the storm had nearly ended. Snow still fell, but gently now, like feathers. Ari walked over and sat beside Nathan. They held out a small piece of crystal, shiny and smooth, the color of the morning sky. Gift, Ari said softly. Nathan looked surprised. For me? Ari nodded. You helped. Thanks. Nathan took it carefully. It's beautiful, he said. Thank you. Ari smiled, their small eyes bright. They didn't speak much, but the bond between them didn't need many words. They had faced the worst cold together. Now they shared warmth, real and silent. A few hours later, a deep hum echoed from the sky. Nathan looked up quickly. They're here? He stepped outside, shielding his eyes. A large rescue craft slowly landed on the snow, pushing up clouds of ice around it. The ship was silver and strong, with bright red markings. The rump lowered, and several figures in white suits came out, carrying stretchers and equipment. Technician Harris? The lead officer asked. That's me, Nathan said. The officer looked at him with wide eyes. You brought back survivors? From the deep pass? Nathan nodded. They were trapped in an ice tunnel. The storm was worse than expected. The team entered the pod. They moved quickly and gently, scanning the aliens and checking their vitals. Ari's mother was lifted carefully onto a stretcher. She reached out and held Ari's hand as they were moved. Ari followed beside her, but looked back at Nathan. Their eyes were full of meaning. Thank you. Goodbye. Don't forget me. Nathan walked over and placed a hand on their shoulder. You're going to be okay now? You come? Ari asked softly. Not today, Nathan said with a kind smile. But maybe someday. Ari nodded, then turned and followed their family into the rescue ship. The engines roared, and within minutes the ship lifted into the sky and disappeared through the clouds. Nathan stood there for a moment, alone in the soft snow. The pod behind him was quiet now, but his heart was full. He looked at the crystal in his hand again. It sparkled gently in the light. He whispered, You're safe now, Ari. Back at the command base, news of the rescue spread quickly. A human technician had braved the deadliest storm on Ulix 3 and saved an alien family, something that had never happened before. Many aliens had always kept their distance from humans. They didn't trust them, but now everything was changing. Reports were sent across sectors. Images of the human carrying the small alien child through the snow were shared on news feeds. The story reached both human and alien worlds. It wasn't about war or politics. It was about kindness, simple, powerful, and real. Weeks passed. Nathan was called back to the main research station. His job was done, but people kept asking about what had happened. He always told the same story about the storm, the cry he heard, and the child he found in the snow. I didn't do anything special, he would say. I just couldn't leave them behind. One day, a small transport arrived at the station. Nathan wasn't expecting anyone, but the officer handed him a sealed package, delivered from Ulix 3 settlement. The officer said that inside was a simple hand-drawn picture. It showed a human holding a tiny alien's hand. The background was a swirl of snow and stars. Beside it was a single word written in rough galactic common: friend. Nathan smiled. The frozen moon of Ulix 3 had been known as a place where nothing grew, where storms ruled the sky, and where only the strong could survive. But now, people saw it differently. Because in the middle of the worst storm, a human had listened to a cry in the wind, and because of that, a child lived, a family was saved, and two very different worlds took a step closer. Nathan returned to his daily work at the research station, but his thoughts often drifted back to Ulix 3 and Ares' family. The icy moon was still cold and quiet, but something had changed, not in the weather, but in the hearts of many. Reports from the alien settlement told of how Ares' family had recovered quickly after the rescue. The elder spoke of the human who risked everything to save a lost child. It was a story that spread like fire, warming even the coldest places. Nathan was invited to attend a special meeting held by the alien leaders. It was rare for humans and aliens to meet so closely, especially for something not about politics. War. The hall was made of ice crystal, shining softly in the light. The leaders sat on carved seats, their faces serious but kind. The chief elder, a tall figure with shimmering white fur and wise eyes, spoke slowly. Human Nathan Harris, your actions on Ulix 3 have shown us something new. You did not come as a conqueror or spy, you came as a friend. Nathan bowed his head slightly. I only did what any person would do. The elder smiled, perhaps, but for us, it is more. You showed us kindness in the coldest place. You saved lives when hope seemed lost. Ares stood nearby, now healthy and full of life. They smiled shyly and handed Nathan a small carved pendant shaped like a snowflake. For you? Ares said softly. Nathan accepted it with thanks. The pendant was cold but beautiful, a symbol of trust and respect. The meeting ended with a new promise. Humans and the Ulixians would work together. Scientific teams would share knowledge, rescue teams would train side by side. For the first time, the frozen moon was a place of peace and friendship. After the meeting, Nathan walked outside into the soft snowfall. Ares ran beside him, laughing as the cold flakes landed on their fur. The wind was gentle, no longer fierce. Will you stay? Ares asked. Nathan smiled. I have other places to go. But I will always remember you. Ares nodded. We will be friends, always. Over the next months, Nathan helped build new shelters and better equipment for the Ulixians. He taught them how to use human technology to survive storms and find food. In return, the aliens shared secrets of the ice and snow, how to read the stars, where to find warm springs, and how to listen to the quiet voices of the wind. Together, they turned a deadly place into a home. News of the friendship between humans and Ulixians inspired others across the galaxy. Stories were told in spaceports and cities about the human who saved a child's tears from freezing, and the bond that followed. Nathan knew the storm was only the beginning. Many challenges lay ahead, but he felt hopeful. Kindness and courage could melt even the coldest fears, and in the heart of Ulix 3, a human and an alien child looked up at the stars, dreaming of a future where no one would be lost or alone. Years passed on Ulix 3, but the memory of the great ice storm stayed alive. The story of Ares, the lost alien child, and Nathan, the brave human who saved them, became a legend told by both humans and Ulixians alike. The frozen moon had changed. New villages grew where only ice had once ruled. Humans and aliens worked side by side, sharing knowledge and hope. The cold was still sharp, But it was no longer a barrier. Nathan returned to Ulix -3 many times. Each visit brought new friends and new projects. Eri grew up strong and curious, learning from both worlds. They and Nathan had become close like family. One clear evening, beneath the shimmering stars, Nathan and Eri stood on a high ridge overlooking a valley filled with light and life. Soft snow fell, covering the ground like a white blanket. "Do you remember the first storm?" Nathan asked, smiling. Eri nodded. "I was so scared, but you came." Nathan looked at the child, now young and confident, and said, "We saved each other." Eri smiled. "You saved my tears, and I will always remember that." The wind whispered through the icy trees, carrying stories of friendship and courage. Nathan and Eri talked of dreams, building schools, exploring the stars, and bringing peace to distant worlds. "Humans and Ulixians together," Eri said. "Stronger than storm." Nathan placed a hand on Eri's shoulder. "Yes, and no storm can freeze that." They stood quietly, watching the sky change colors from deep blue to soft pink. The galaxy beyond stretched wide and full of wonder. In that moment, the ice moon was more than cold and lonely. It was home, and thanks to one human who heard a child's cry in the storm, the future was warm with hope.